So with that in mind, hello, I'm Bruce Deutsch. I'm a member of the City Council of Dunsmuir, and I'm also a commissioner on the Local Transportation Commission for the county. And I'm also a member of the Cal City's Sacramento Valley Division. I had a request from the fellow from Cal Cities who runs this division and was looking for somebody that could host this. And because I happen to have an electric car, he reached out to me. And over the back and forth with 300 or so emails, we started off trying to get here into Dunsmuir, but it's snowing like you wouldn't believe right now. We're expecting 20 inches, and there are people stuck on I-5. So it's a good thing that Lauren and Stephanie didn't make the trek up here. But with that in mind, I'm excited to host this, and I will be recording this, so anybody who didn't make it here will eventually be up on the internet. And with that in mind, I'll turn it over to Lauren Prehoda. Is that the right pronunciation?
That is. Excellent job.
Okay, I'll leave it to you, and the meeting is yours.
Thank you so much. Again, Bruce, really appreciate you facilitating and inviting us to come to your community and talk about this issue that's facing the state. Really appreciate that opportunity because now is the time to get input and to help shape this idea that we're exploring. So good evening, everyone. My name is Lauren Prehoda. I am the Caltrans Road Charge Program Manager from down in headquarters in Sacramento. And again, I do wish that I could have been with you in person. That was the intent I had when I woke up this morning. But at Caltrans, safety is our #1 priority. And so it's probably best that everyone is staying home, off the roads, being cozy. So I'm just going to give you a little bit of an overview of an issue that's coming down the road at the state, what the state has been studying as to potentially address it, and some opportunities for you to be involved. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen.
Okay, I'm going to make you the host.
Okay.
Okay, you should be able to do it now.
Okay. Great. Okay.
The only problem is, Lauren,
okay?
the only problem is, Lauren, that since you're the host right now, I wasn't able to make you the co-host. If you could have your participants thing open on the side, and if anyone pops up in the waiting room, because I can't do that right now. Make sense?
It does make sense. I wonder if I have the ability to do that. Hold on.
Yeah, now that you're the host, all you have to do is open up your participants tab. And if somebody pops up on the top up there, it'll say waiting room, and it'll say that person. Just hit admit, and you'll be able to go right on.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Seeing anyone at the moment, but hopefully this will pan out.
Yep, bye. There you go.
All right. Okay, so can everyone see the screen all right?
Yes.
Okay, great. So for those of you who are not transportation policy nerds like myself, you may not know, but most of our transportation system in California is funded through the state gas tax. And that's worked for 100 years for us for now. But as we look to the future, it's really not going to be a source that we can rely on for funding for much longer. And that plays out with a couple of different ways, as you can see here. So first off is our vehicles are getting more fuel efficient. And this is fantastic for so many reasons. We have to buy less gas. But when we buy less gas, that means we're paying less in gas taxes. Secondly, some vehicles are not using gas at all. And of course, there are some state policies in place that are continuing to incentivize that. And those policies, of course, can be debated, but they are there. And so, we have to think about that effect of there are a growing number of vehicles that are not contributing currently to address the wear and tear on our system. Thirdly, we have the inflation that we've seen, loss of purchase power. This is not as much of an issue at the state level because when SB1 went through in 2017, the legislature did index the state gas tax to the cost, the inflationary index. It is, however, an issue at the federal level. There is also a federal gas tax, and that has not been increased since the early 90s. So if you think about what you could buy with $1 in the early 90s compared to what you could buy today, you get a sense of where that issue is on the federal side. And as these three issues are growing, what we're seeing is in the fourth point here is that our tax system is getting increasingly unfair. We have people who can maybe not afford very fuel efficient vehicles or need less fuel efficient vehicles just because of their way of life, who are paying more to use the road than people who maybe can't afford more fuel efficient vehicles. The way the research has shown that this tends to play out is that those at the lower end of the economic scale are the ones that are paying more, which is not really what we want to do. Also, those in rural communities are paying more than those in urban centers. Reason being because they tend to have those less fuel efficient vehicles. You need those larger vehicles to help you get through the snow, right? Just the way of life choices that need to be made. So we're seeing that growing kind of inequity in the fuel tax structure under the existing gas tax system. So the state has been trying to research a potential alternative to the gas tax, something that we could replace the gas tax with, just because it's not going to see us where we need to go for much longer. So what we've been looking at is something called a road charge. This is a per mile fee. It's meant kind of that user pays tax philosophy. So we're moving away from a per gallon tax that we have right now to a per mile fee. And the way the state is looking at this is as a replacement for the gas tax. Again, not an additional tax on top, but something to replace that funding that we're using right now. 1 per mile rate for all passenger vehicles so that everyone's paying the same to use the road, regardless of the type of vehicle that they drive. Something that's revenue neutral. We're not necessarily looking for a tax increase. With the goal of really stabilizing our existing funding. This is funding for state roads, it's funding for county roads, city roads, transit, basically all of our transportation system. And that money is being used right now on critical programs and road repair and maintenance. So we need to make sure that we have that funding into the future. It's not a new funding source that we can pick up that spend. So all of these, of course, are policy decisions, and ultimately this will have to go through the state legislature, and the legislature will have their say on it. But this is kind of the way that we're viewing it in the administration at the moment, trying to understand how this might work. So I want to just illustrate kind of that unfairness issue that I talked about. You can see here we have just some examples of different types of vehicles with different fuel efficiency, driving the same number of miles, average miles that Californians drive in any given month. And you can see there's just a large difference in what people are paying to, drive the same number of miles. But if we look at switching to a road charge, that evens out. So that means that some people, the cost comes down. Some people, the cost goes up because they're not contributing under the gas tax the way other people are. So it brings that into, again, everyone paying the same to use the road. So I want to just kind of give a brief high-level overview of how this might work. So this slide here is just kind of a picture of the administrative system, kind of the back office system that you wouldn't necessarily see in the day-to-day, but how it operates from the organizational perspective. So what we envision is a state oversight agency that would certify private third-party account managers. And those account managers would handle the day-to-day interaction with the taxpayer, providing the mileage reporting option, collecting the miles, calculating the road charge due, giving the invoice, collecting the tax. All that goes back to the state is the number of miles and the tax. There's a couple of reasons where a lot of states have done pilots, and we've all kind of settled on this structure. And the first reason being just comfort with privacy. People in general trust private businesses more with data management than they do the government. So that's one aspect. Two, trying to keep administrative costs down. A lot of times private sector can do this kind of account management more efficiently than the state can. And thirdly, just kind of longevity and adaptation to advances in technology. We want this system to be flexible and be able to use technologies that are 50 years down the road that we can't even conceptualize right now. So private sector, again, often adapts more quickly to changes in technology than the state does. So this will allow for the maximum amount of flexibility in the system. What the taxpayer really sees more, though, is just the reporting, the way they choose to report their mileage. And what we envision in the system is having a broad range of options that people can choose from to control how they report the mileage to the state. So these are some reporting options that have been tested, whether either in California or in other state pilots. And they range from very low-tech options to very high-tech options. And there's a number of reasons why it's important to have these options. So first off, I would say most critically is giving people more control over their privacy. In our society today, we constantly have to make decisions and trade-offs between privacy and efficiency and how our data is managed. You think about, you carry your cell phone around. There's some tracking with that, and you've traded that off for the convenience of, being able to have your GPS map right with you, right? You're constantly making those kind of choices. And there's going to be some of those choices in the system as well. We want to make sure that we have very low-tech options to very high-tech options so that people can make that trade-off decision for themselves, what they are comfortable with. So a very low-tech option, for example, would be something like a third-party odometer read. So you can envision, think of kind of like a smog check type scenario where you go in and you have someone certified, read your odometer and report it and pay right then, and you're done. There's no technology involved, no tracking, nothing. You don't need any of that. But we also have vehicles coming off the line today that have in-vehicle telematics that are just automatically reporting oodles of data to the car companies, or and it's just very efficient, and the driver doesn't even have to worry about it. Some people like that. It appeals to them. That efficiency appeals to them, and that all the data that they can get into, they like that. So we want to make sure we have that range so that people can make that choice. Also, we have a range of vehicles that we have to deal with, some very old historic vehicles that are never going to have in-vehicle telematics. So we need to have that breadth of options on different technology fronts. Also, just some people have different access or comfort levels with technology, and so something simpler and low tech might appeal to them more. So again, for all these reasons, we want to build a structure that gives people choice so they can ultimately control how much information they are sharing. So just to put this in context of what's going on nationally, you can see from this picture here, there are 3 states already in the US that have active road charge programs: Oregon, Utah, and Virginia. And then the states in green have all done pilots or are rolling out pilots. Some of the ones that I'm most excited about right now are the ones that are coming online in Kansas and Oklahoma. Really excited to see what they do there. And nationally as well, I mentioned there is also a federal gas tax that has similar issues. Last year, Congress in their transportation bill included a national road charge pilot, which we expect the planning for that to get underway this year. So there's a lot of momentum around this. You can see it's the coast, it's the Midwest, it's the South, it's red states and blue states. There's a lot of interest, I think, and a comfort level with this idea of kind of structuring this around a user pays idea, kind of like almost like a utility bill for usage that seems very practical and appealing in a lot of ways. So what is California doing? We've already done a couple of pilots. Our first pilot in 2017 we were directed to do that by the state legislature. And that was kind of a general feasibility test. When we found that it was a system that could very much potentially work for California, but it also had recommendations for areas of future study. And one of those key areas was we need to greater understand the impacts on rural drivers of this program. So we've been doing a lot of research. I think the great news is, as we saw in the earlier slides, with that leveling out of the taxes, because rural drivers on average tend to drive less fuel efficient vehicles, it seems that on average that they will be actually paying less in taxes if we shift to a road charge system. Because while rural drivers face the issue of longer distances to drive, that is something that's currently happening under the gas tax as well. So if we can bring that per mile cost down, that's actually going to be beneficial for rural drivers. But there's still more to understand, because rural and tribal communities have unique issues. And we need to understand how the system might fit into those issues. So that's why we're actually focusing this next pilot that we're doing, our public-private road project, solely on rural and tribal drivers. We're trying to recruit statewide from these communities so that we can have you guys live with it, experience it, see what it means for you, and give us your honest feedback. Love it, hate it, tweak it this way. Have you thought about this? All of that stuff we want to understand. In this particular pilot, we are testing one of those higher tech reporting methods that does include location. And the reason for this is we want to explore what benefits this might uniquely bring to rural communities if we can differentiate to a level of preciseness between public and private roads. There are a lot of areas in the state where people might drive extensively on private roads. And while there is an existing process the state has to request refunds for money, gas tax spent that's actually being spent on private roads, it's a little bit clunky, and we don't know necessarily how many people are using it, whether it's more businesses using it versus individuals and things like that. So we want to explore whether this more precise reporting tool is a benefit for rural drivers, if the data is useful. If we can differentiate, tribal roads, is that a useful data set for tribes? These kind of things. So that's why we're specifically exploring this particular reporting option as part of this effort. So we are going live later this month. We are currently recruiting for recruits. This is the link right here on the page where you can go and sign up on our website at caroadcharge.com. We are offering up to $250 per person in incentives for those who want to, give us their time and feedback. What participating involves is, if you sign up, we'll send you, if you're chosen to participate, we'll send you a notice to sign up for the account. We will send you a plug-in device that you put into the OBD2 port of your vehicle. Then you just drive around like you usually would for 6 months. We will send you some monthly simulated invoices that you can, review and give us your feedback on, and then take a couple of surveys, and that's pretty much it. But it's an opportunity for you to live with it, to try it out for yourself, and really, understand what this might mean for you and your day to day.
Lauren, before you go on the screen there, should that be a .com after road charge? Right there.
I think this is correct. Hold on. Let me pull it up exactly. I don't think that it's incorrect. I should have tested it a couple of times, but sorry, I can't get to my internet here.
I'll tell you what, I'll check it and you can go on. I'll take care of it for you. Okay.
Nope. You know what? You're right. I think we missed something. We need to make sure that we catch that, Stephanie. But yeah. So anyway, our general website is caroadcharge.com. There's a button right on the main page that'll take you to the sign up page. So either way, you can get there. And then also the other thing we're trying to do is, a meeting like this, meeting with communities, just to talk about this, get feedback, see what you think about the idea, get your suggestions. Have you thought about this kind of thing? Just so we can be talking about this and have the rural and tribal voice at the table while this is being crafted, while it's being shaped. So it's not just, I know sometimes it seems like you get dictums coming down from Sacramento, but this is something we really want to make sure that we're making sure that the voice of these communities is at the table. as we're in process. So this is an opportunity for you guys to weigh in on state policy. So with that, again, this is my contact information and our website right there. If you're interested in finding out what this, numbers wise means for you, right on our homepage, we have a calculator where you can put in your own vehicle and the number of miles you drive, and it'll give you an estimate for how much you're currently paying in state taxes under the gas tax and how much you might pay under a road charge system. So that kind of gives you a sense of what it means, particularly for you for your budget. So with that, I'm going to stop sharing my screen and just kind of open it up. Again, this is pretty informal. If anyone has questions, I'm happy to go through the chat and all that stuff, but just see what you think. Oh, great. Stephanie has put the correct link in the chat, so you can access that. Thank you, Stephanie. So yeah, with that, Bruce, I don't know if you have any initial questions, but I'll open it up.
Well, no, I think it was a great presentation. I think the most important slide there was showing those equities and the lack of equities in terms of how much to pay. The one question I think, or the one thing I think we should point out, we're not talking about, for instance, for an electric vehicle person paying the same in terms of travel, because the gasoline is going to be a different amount. It's just the tax that we're talking about here when you look at the differences, right?
Right. You still, with an EV, you still would have those gas savings itself. It's
right.
Really about the tax. Yeah.
Yep, exactly. Yeah. Ann Marsh has questions. Go ahead, Ann. You're still muted.
Sorry about that. Yeah, I have about 4 or 5 questions. Number
Great.
one, a lot of people that drive on our freeways and our roads, California roads, are not residents. So is this program slated for residents only? And how do you intend to tax those other people that are now paying taxes?
It's an excellent question and an important consideration, because obviously we don't bar California residents from driving out of state, especially for those communities who live very close to some of the borders. It's definitely an issue. So we've been working with a number of states on this issue to explore what an interoperable road charge system might look like, because it's going to be, as much as it's an issue for California, you can imagine it's much more of an issue for states in New England, where you easily have 40% of miles from out-of-state drivers. So what we have been studying is something, we looked to an existing process for inspiration. If you are familiar with the International Fuel Tax Agreement, which there's no reason you should be, but that's the existing structure we have in place to sort out the gas taxes owed each state from cross-country trucking. So when you have a truck that, maybe picks up something at a port in California and then heads across Arizona and all, to places in the Midwest or whatever, there's this existing process that where they report miles and sort out the gas taxes owed to each state. So it's kind of the central clearinghouse model. And so we've looked to that, and we've actually tested a central clearinghouse with the state of Oregon. We have a report on that on our website if you are really interested in digging into the weeds. But so testing out this idea, it's very feasible, and I think that is a pretty good path to support an interoperable system. Now, that being said, there likely would be a transition period, because I don't anticipate that all states would transition to a road charge on the same day. Everyone has their own unique political process, and everyone's in different stages. So, we'd have to kind of work through that transition period. And even within California, it's unlikely that we would transition all vehicles overnight. We have 34 million registered vehicles in California, and that's a lot. So we would probably do a phased approach to implementation. And so during that period, we probably have this transition period where both a road charge and a gas tax would be in place. And the way we would handle that for those who had transitioned to a road charge, they would receive a credit up front for the gas taxes they had paid based on the EPA rating of their vehicle, so they would not be double taxed. So, you know, you have to think through these different stages and how they would, that's kind of how we would approach it.
Okay, I have another question then. You said some kind of plug-in device in a vehicle. All my car has is a cigarette lighter. How do we deal with that?
Right, so that's the reporting option that we're specifically testing in this pilot. So if your vehicle does not have an OBD2 port, then it would not be something that you could do to participate in this specific pilot. However, that's why we talk about having that range of reporting options for the full program, because there are different technologies in different vehicles. And so we do need to have some options that work for vehicles that don't have that plug-in option.
Well, it also may be in that particular case that she may not be aware of what the OBD connector is. It's something underneath the dash. So depending on what your vehicle is, the year and make of it, you may actually have it. So that's one thing to look into.
It's a 2001 Subaru.
You
Have
probably
no
have
idea.
it. I would think she has it, don't you think, Lauren?
It's quite likely. So if you ever take your vehicle in for maintenance or repair to or Jiffy Lube or something, you know, they will often, you know, plug in something to get the diagnostics out of the car to tell them what's wrong. It's that same plug in place.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I didn't know what that thing was.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. I
have
didn't
more
know about it either
questions.
before I started this job, so don't worry about it.
Many of us who live here, including my husband and I, have medical appointments that take us 75 to 110 miles from home. So do the math, that's a 200-mile round trip if we do the 110 miles. How can that be fair to us to be charged by the mile?
Right. So this is a great question. I think this is the heart of people's concern about the impact to rural drivers from this potential program, because rural drivers have that distance issue. That's just a reality that the things you need to do are farther away. So, you know, a shift to a road charge is not going to get rid of that distance issue. You know, it's still going to be there. But I think the potential here is getting, again, whether you pay more or less in a shift from a gas tax to a road charge depends entirely on the vehicle that you drive. So if you are driving a very fuel efficient vehicle right now, or even an EV, yes, you're going to pay more under a road charge per mile. But if you're driving something less fuel efficient, which on average rural drivers tend to do, then you'll be saving a bit on that per mile. So is it going to take away the entirety of that cost from those long trips? No, but it is going to bring it down a little bit, and you know, bring that tax level down if you have one of those less fuel efficient vehicles. We are actually undergoing a study right now where we're trying to dig into the impact on people who have to drive a lot, super commuters and things like that, because we do want to understand the specifics of, you know, those long distance drivers, because it is an issue across the state, both in rural and some of our urban areas as well, where people live far, far away from where they work because of the cost of housing. So we're definitely digging into that because it is a really big point of concern. But I think the research we've done so far is positive in that we do expect that on average, rural drivers will end up paying less in taxes under a road charge system.
Hopefully.
Hopefully.
The other thing is to even get to Walmart or a major grocery store. We go 25 miles, so that's a 50-mile round trip. Yeah, so we drive a lot. But I have one more question, very important question. You're talking about this contract company that's going to do the billing and charges and stuff. How much is that going to cost our tax dollars to pay for that company?
Right. So we're aiming to keep that as low as possible. And this
But
is
that
actually,
doesn't mean anything. I'm sorry,
Well,
that does not mean anything.
all right, well, let me dig into this a little bit more. So this is actually one of the reasons why we're looking to partner with private companies, because they have the potential to keep the cost down. So for example, in our last pilot that we did, we tested collecting a road charge in partnership with some existing business models. One of those was usage-based insurance. There are some car insurance companies out there right now that have a model that charges you insurance based on how many miles you drive, right? So as part of their business, they are already collecting miles, and they're already managing your account, and they're already sending you a bill. So to add in, having them collect the road charge on behalf of the state, literally all that they have to do in addition to what they're already doing is, take the data they already have, add it together with the road charge, add a line in the bill that they send you, and it's not even an additional bill that the taxpayer has to pay. So that is a very, very low additional administrative cost, which means that savings can get passed on to the state. It's easier for the taxpayer because they don't even have to write another bill, don't have to use another stamp. And it's a plus for the business, because what partnering with the state in the collection of this tax opens doors to them in terms of market access. So it's kind of a win-win-win all around. And that's really one of the key reasons why we're looking for partners, private sector partners, to do this. Anyone that has a business that's built around account management that can be paired with that mileage collection option. I can think of things like Verizon, tolling companies, ride sharing is something that we partnered with. Anything, again, that has that account management function, we have a huge opportunity to really keep the cost down.
I would not like my information shared with many of those companies.
And that's a perfectly fair feeling to have. And again, that's why we would have that range of reporting options. And again, all the data that you need to share would be, the vehicle information and the number of miles. So it's a pretty limited data set.